One to another edition of the NerdCorp Retro Game Review. I am Chad. He is Matt. We're reviewing Bart's Nightmare for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. That's SNES, not SNES. Don't do that. We don't like that here. It's SNES. With that being said, we do this in 5 categories. We got graphics, which is how it looks, sound, which is how it sounds, gameplay, which is how it plays, fun factor, which is how much fun we had playing it, and challenge, whether or not we'd come back and do it again, depending on the difficulty and or challenge. With that being said, I'm going to throw it to Matt to start us off with the graphics. Matt, out of 5, what are you giving this game?
I did find the graphics overall visually appealing. There's lots of variety in the environmental design, character animation, stuff like that. It's pretty solid presentation all around. My biggest issue is that the performance can lag in certain spots here and there, making some of the mini games that are on offer here hard to play. But aside from that main issue, it's not much else I can really think of that's a huge problem detriment to it. So I'm gonna go with a 4 out of 5. For sound, it's decent as far as, as the soundtrack goes. But again, this is one of those cases where nothing really stands out in the music. Voiceovers and other sound effects, they're entertaining to a point, but they tend to repeat themselves a little too often and become redundant over time. So to me, that leaves it at about an average score. So I'm going to stick with a 3 out of 5 on that one. Um, Gameplay, this is the best way I can describe it is it's frustratingly inconsistent. I said while the games for the most part function for overall, their performance tends to bring progression to a halt at times. Sometimes you'll drop out of something without really knowing why, and the controls are not always as responsive as they could be. Again, it's one of those cases of not bad, but not great. There could be a lot of patches and improvements that could have been done to this to make it better. So I'm gonna go with a 3 out of 5 on that. Fun factor. I had some fun, but the gameplay issues, like said before, definitely did keep this from being an enjoyable experience that I wanted to play all the way through. If the layout was a bit more, streamlined instead of just kind of all over the place, to keep things moving at a steady, solid clip, then it would be a little more fun to play, in my opinion. But as it stands right now, I got bored pretty quickly, so I would say a 2 out of 5 on that one. And as far as challenge goes, I found it unbalanced, but with some practice, most stages they can be completed with relatively little effort. But is it worthwhile to actually play? Not so much. So, but not the worst score overall. So a 3 out of 5 for me on that one as well.
Well, I'm taking over now. Graphics for me, I think, were the selling point. This is the SNES, and I thought the graphics were fantastic. There is a lag. I don't attribute that much to the graphics as I do just the overall, system at the, and the ambition at the time. So I'm going to give it a 5 because I really thought these graphics were fantastic. But there's a lag issue, but I don't equate the lag issue to be with the graphics. That's that. Sound for me, I'm gonna give it a 3, only because I'm being generous here. This game is. I forgot how much I played this game as a kid. Replaying it, I was like, "Oh my god, I remember all of this." So I'm gonna be a little bit more lenient than I maybe need to be at times, but definitely sound is not great. It teases you with the theme, and then it doesn't come at you at all afterwards, and you're kind of just left wondering, the hell. So I'm gonna give it a 3. Not great, but not terrible. Gameplay, yeah, it's buggy. This is where I think the lag really does come into a factor because, as you were saying, it does inhibit you at times from what you're trying to do. And when you're on, the screen right now showing the Bartman course, like there's a lot of, very nuanced control that needs to be done here that it just doesn't offer it. And at times that can be extremely frustrating, but other times I don't think it affects the game nearly as much. So I think it's very playable. So I'm definitely going to stick with the 3. As far as fun factor goes, I love this game. This game is bad. It's not great. But if you're a Simpsons fan, you're going to want to play through it at least once just to see what it has to offer, how all the characters are used, all the funny little quips and jokes that they put into the game. Barney's riding some type of, flying elephant gas monster, and then there's, Marge is Mothra, and Homer's King Kong, and you're playing as Bartzilla. So like that's all very funny, and there's some really great little bits and gags in there. So I'm gonna give it a 4 because I think if you're a Simpsons fan, you're definitely gonna enjoy this. As far as challenge goes, it's definitely a slog to get through at times if you're not into this for the gags and for the fact that you're playing as Bart in different variants of the Bart character, Bartman, Bartzilla, etc. Then I don't think it's going to have the same kind of weight that it normally would for another gamer. But if you're a Simpsons fan, I definitely think there's a lot of here to at least invest in. And I think the challenge is more or less getting through the game to see how all the characters are used and portrayed. And I think that right there is worth a 3 on its own. So that gives us a grand total of 16.5 out of 25. That means this game gets a 66%. So that'll do it for this week's edition of the Retro Game Review. I've been Chad. He's been Matt. We're at realnerdcorp.com, RealNerdcorp.com. If you're listening live on twitch.tv/nerdcorp or Real Nerdcorp, I forget what the handle is. We'll be back and doing our podcast here momentarily, but if you're listening to this on YouTube, we're done for the day. You guys have a good one, and remember, play more games, or whatever our dumbass slogan is. Have a good night.